Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of AEW's Collision. Starting off the evening, we'll go to our first match of the night. It is a ladder match. It is Andrade El Idolo versus Buddy Matthews. I thought it was a great match, especially to start Collision. Back and forth matchup between Andrade and Buddy Matthews, with Andrade hitting a moonsault off the ladder on Buddy Matthews. Andrade and Buddy Matthews then both exchange, with Matthews keeping the pace of the match. Matthews then hits a running knee. Andrade then hits a spear, sending Matthews onto the ladder. Andrade then hits a sunset powerbomb off the ladder on Matthews. It looked absolutely brutal. Julia Hart then gets involved in the match by grabbing handcuffs. Matthews then cuffs Andrade, but somehow Andrade frees himself. Andrade then cuffs Matthews. Hart then attacks Andrade, trying to climb the ladder. Andrade ends up pushing Hart off the ladder. Andrade then continues to climb the ladder, grabs the mask, and your winner of the match is Andrade El Idolo. Hats off to Andrade El Idolo for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. This was pretty much an open challenge. It is Darby Allin versus Minoru Suzuki. The match itself I thought was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Allin and Suzuki, with Suzuki keeping the pace of the match. Darby then hits a drop kick off the apron on Suzuki. Darby and Minoru Suzuki then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Darby Allin hitting a code red on Suzuki. Allin then goes for a coffin drop, but Suzuki counters it with a submission. Darby then ultimately hits a roll-up to counter that submission, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Darby Allin. After the match, Christian is shown on the Titantron. Christian says Darby is distracted, and that Christian also hypes up the TNT Championship. Hats off to Darby Allin for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Samoa Joe versus Gravity. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Samoa Joe and Gravity, with Samoa Joe keeping the pace of the match. Joe ultimately hits a devastating muscle buster on Gravity, pins him for the 3. And your winner of the match is Samoa Joe. Hats off to Samoa Joe for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a CM Punk segment. Punk walks to the ring carrying out the red bag. Shivani then asks CM Punk what's in the red bag. Punk then mentions AEW's All In at Wembley. He also mentions Ricky Starks. Punk then brings out the AEW World Championship. Punk says that he is the real champion. Then Punk takes out a thing of spray paint and then sprays a black X on the front of the championship title. Punk says then he's straight edge. Ricky Starks is here. Ricky then wants Punk's title. Ricky then says he is the face of Collision. Punk says that Ricky can have his match with a stipulation. Punk says that there will be a special referee to their matchup next week, and that special referee will be none other than the Dragon, Ricky Steamboat. Man, definitely excited for this. And honestly, again, excited for CM Punk versus Ricky Stark again for Punk's AEW Championship. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Dante Martin teaming up with Action Andretti and Vikingo versus Bullet Club Gold. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Bullet Club Gold keeping the pace of the match. Andretti then hits a Spanish fly, but Bullet Club Gold ultimately hit the finish. Pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are Bullet Club Gold. Hats off to Bullet Club Gold for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Kira Hogan versus Mercedes Martinez. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Hogan and Martinez, with Martinez keeping the pace of the match. Martinez then ultimately applies a submission hold on Kira Hogan. Kira Hogan taps out, and your winner of the match is Mercedes Martinez. After the match, Martinez wouldn't let go of the submission hold. Statlander makes her way down to the ring to stop the attack from Martinez. Martinez ends up attacking Statlander, and Willow Nightingale is also here as well. So it looks like we got a little storyline here with Statlander and possibly Mercedes Martinez. But hats off to Martinez for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of AEW's Collision. It is for the AEW Tag Team Championships. It is FTR defending the AEW Tag Team Championships against MJF and Adam Cole. I thought it was a great match. Back and forth matchup between FTR, Adam Cole, and MJF, with FTR keeping the pace of the match. MJF and Dax then both exchange in the middle of the ring. Dax then hits a slingshot powerbomb on MJF. MJF then goes for a heat seeker on Wheeler, but Dax hits a roll-up, pins for the 3, And your winners of the match and still AEW Tag Team Champions are FTR. Hats off to FTR for getting the win in that matchup. A couple of things I want to say about Collision, man, before I get out of here. Number one, by far, to me, in my honest opinion, this was the best Collision show they put on since, its existence. It was a great show from top to bottom, and honestly, kind of newsworthy. Number one, the opening matchup, Andrade and Buddy Matthews, solid matchup, man. That Sunset Powerbomb spot that Andrade hit on Buddy Matthews, man, absolutely brutal. And it just creates a further storyline between Andrade and Malachi Black. And that's the match that everybody wants to see. And the last time we seen Andrade and Malachi Black, pretty much in the ring was when they were in NXT. The last time I remember. But at the same time, too, this is also, like I said, building up a storyline between hopefully Andrade facing off against Malachi Black, which a lot of people, including myself, want to see. And to be honest with you, I'm liking the fact that they're building storylines slowly on Collision. But again, I want to get more into details of that towards the end of the podcast. But again, very excited to see what's going to happen next with Andrade. Hopefully we will see him face off against Malachi Black in the near future. Darby Allin. Darby Allin was on Collision. It seemed like he was kind of, still frustrated from what happened on Dynamite. Showed up on Collision, wanted to have pretty much an open challenge. And that person to answer that challenge was the legendary, the legend himself, Minoru Suzuki. It was a great match, man. I love the fact that AEW is, continuously keep working with New Japan. New Japan has a lot of great talent over there. And Suzuki is an absolute legend. The king of Pancrase. The guy's an absolute legend, man. And he's still, even now, man, he's still, still wrestling, still giving fans fantastic matches. And the guy is just brutal in the ring, man. The guy, his age and what he's done in the ring, those chops and those exchanges and everything else like that, man, it's absolutely brutal. If you get in the match with Minoru Suzuki. I remember when Suzuki had the matchup with Samoa Joe, man, it was absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. But again, it was great to see Darby Allin, the match between him and Suzuki, solid matchup. Christian Cage, man, there's a lot of people that, hate Christian Cage. I'm not going to sit here and say I hate Christian Cage. I'm not going to sit here and say that. But do I think Christian Cage is still relevant? No, I don't. I'm sorry, man. If you're a Cage fan, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to, disappoint you or anything, but he's not doing anything with that TNT Championship, number one. And number two, he didn't even win it. And number three, I feel like there's not a spot right now for Christian. I really don't. In the beginning, Christian was doing very well. He was gaining, I think it was last year, he was gaining some wins underneath his belt and slowly started to get himself in a championship picture and then aligned himself with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and kind of mentoring, Jack Perry and Luchasaurus as a tag team. And obviously we all saw how that story panned out with, Christian and Jungle Boy and so on and so forth. But Christian really hasn't done a whole lot. Now, he's been a mouthpiece for Luchasaurus, which is great. And I think, Christian, Luchasaurus having Christian in his corner is great for Luchasaurus, but it's not like we've seen a whole lot from Luchasaurus here as of late, especially Christian Cage. So, am I anticipating or super excited about a Darby Allin versus Christian Cage match? No. But what I will say, if we are getting that match, and it looks like we are getting that match because Darby Allin had won that Rampage Battle Royal, and the winner would have get an opportunity at the TNT Championship, I'm all for it. But if Darby's going to face off against Cage for that TNT Championship, hopefully Darby gets the win and gets a clean win and becomes a new TNT Champion, because I think Darby Allin can do a lot of great things being the TNT Champion and bring back a little bit more lineage to that championship, because right now all that lineage that the TNT Championship did have and how synonymous it was with AEW, well, that's not that's not the case anymore. It's more or less the AEW All International Championship that's getting a lot more spotlight nowadays than it is the TNT Championship. So hopefully, if this match does go down and we get Darby Allin versus Christian, Darby Allin beats Christian and becomes a new TNT Champion, and Darby brings a bit more spotlight to the TNT Championship once again. CM Punk, man, we had a CM Punk segment, man. This was huge, in my honest opinion. The fact that he came down to the ring with that red bag once again. Everybody was wondering what was in the bag. Come to find out, it was the AEW World Heavyweight Championship that CM Punk technically never lost. With that being said, it looks like he still has, he was mentioning some things about AEW and the backstage politics in AEW. A lot of people said he was taking jabs still at the Elite. Who knows? But in that red bag was the AEW World Championship that Punk never lost. Now, with that being said, Punk took the title out of the bag and then sprayed a humongous X in front of the championship, said he was straight edge. And then Ricky Starks comes out and wants to challenge Punk for Punk's AEW World Championship. Now, am I liking the way they're going with this? I'm not going to say entirely, because this is the problem I'm having with this right now. Unless they're going to do something between CM Punk and MJF to figure out who is the real world champion. Now, we may get that at All In. I have no idea. And the reason why I'm saying that is because MJF and Adam Cole just had that match with FTR. And they lost. They lost clean. With that being said, there's probably no need right now for MJF and Adam Cole to kind of be a tag team. I'm not saying that MJF turns heel or anything else like that, but because the tag team tournament's done and they had their opportunity against FTR and they lost clean, now it's okay. Well, who's going to challenge MJF next for this World Heavyweight Championship? Now, MJF did say that he will give Adam Cole his rematch for that championship, but the way I'm thinking is Ricky Stark's going to go up against CM Punk next Saturday on Collision, with special guest referee being Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Do I see Ricky possibly beating Punk? I'm not sure. It can go a lot of different ways, because Punk has got, Ricky Starks has got lucky getting wins over CM Punk. But if Punk somehow does beat Ricky Starks and still holds on to that championship, which could happen or could not happen, but let's say it does happen, do we see a possible triple threat match at All In between CM Punk, Adam Cole, and MJF at All In? Because right now, what it looks like is that MJF is the current champion for AEW, and the number one contender right now, and the way the storyline's going, is Adam Cole. If CM Punk is telling everybody that he's still the real champion, that he's never lost, so you got two guys holding AEW Championship Gold, and nobody's really the true champion. This is kind of like the same thing that we got years and years ago with WWE between John Cena and CM Punk, where CM Punk, won the championship and then walked out, and then he was gone, and then, they made a new championship with John Cena. And it was like a whole big storyline. Then you had CM Punk and John Cena wrestling each other at SummerSlam for the WWE Championship. Each one of them had the WWE Championship. So are we kind of getting the same thing here between CM Punk and MJF? So it's going to be very interesting to see what's going on between CM Punk. Is there any more storyline between Punk and MJF? Are we going to get another match between MJF and Punk? It's still yet to be seen, but definitely a lot of interesting stuff coming out of the CM Punk segment for sure. Kira Hogan and Mercedes Martinez, again, solid matchup. And to be honest with you, I was kind of happy that Statlander did come down to the ring to stop the onslaught that Martinez had over Kira Hogan. This hopefully sets up a storyline between Chris Statlander and Mercedes Martinez for the TBS Championship. I'm a huge fan of Chris Statlander. I think she's one of those talents on the roster that's severely underrated, to be honest with you. And I feel like she doesn't really get utilized a whole hell of a lot in AEW. I really don't. And with her being a TBS champion and honestly beating Jade Cargill to win that TBS championship, I was kind of hoping that, Statlander would get shown more on Dynamite more predominantly. And that's not the case. So hopefully now we might get a storyline between Statlander and Martinez for the AEW TBS championship. I'm all for it. But they have to build that. And again, it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying last week about All In, which I'll touch more base on here just in a second. But then we get the main event. FTR versus Adam Cole and MJF. Man, I'll tell you this. The stuff that MJF and Adam Cole have been doing, these vignettes that have been played and all these segments and stuff like that, it's been absolute comedy gold, man. I mean, whether you hate MJF or you're a humongous fan of MJF, you cannot knock what that guy has done since he's been with AEW, man. He's been a part of a lot of great moments in AEW. He's great on the microphone. He's a great world champion. And, the stuff that he's been doing with Adam Cole, the banter back and forth, the funny skits and stuff like that, it's been absolutely hilarious. But the match itself, I mean, it was a great match. And I mean, for what it's worth, with all due respect to Adam Cole and MJF, they went up against the best tag team today. Hands down. I'm not going to sit here and say they're the greatest tag team of all time, but it's kind of hard not to put them in that conversation. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler are by far the best tag team in the game right now. Hands down. And it shows, man. The body of work these guys put in, Dax and Cash Wheeler, man. The matches they had with the Briscoes and even their WWE days and NXT. I mean, they've had some fantastic matches. Won multiple championships from all the way over to New Japan down to Mexico. AEW tag team champions. I mean, these guys are your pro definition of a tag team. They are tag team wrestlers through and through, and every single time these guys have a match, man, they always put on a banger of a match. whether it was against MJF, Adam Cole, or whether they had that great match between Juice Robinson and Jay White, that 2 out of 3 falls match that was absolutely awesome. These guys love professional wrestling, and these guys are the pure definition of what tag team wrestling is all about, which made for a great match, great storyline between both these teams, and it was absolutely awesome to see. But, I mean, it was a great night, man. Collision was a fantastic night. I heard the ratings were actually up from this Collision show they just had, and hopefully they can keep moving forward with these Collision shows. I know everybody's excited. I'm excited, at least, to see Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the next Collision show to be a special guest referee in Punk's versus Ricky Starks match. It's going to be awesome, man. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in a ring, so it's going to be absolutely awesome. So, with that being said, too, I mean, there's still a little bit of tiny flaws, man, too. Like, I mean, the biggest elephant in the room, and I touched base on this last week, is AEW's All In. Nothing is being booked right now. Nothing's booked on the show right now. The only thing that I did hear about AEW's All In, which I'm not a humongous fan of either, is Will Ospreay versus Chris Jericho. I don't know why they're booking this match. I don't know where they're going to go with how Jericho falls into the fold with Will Ospreay. I don't know how all this is going to pan out. Now, again, it could have a lot to do with Don Callis, because Don Callis was doing a little bit of work with Will Ospreay when Ospreay was going up against Kenny Omega for the IWGP United States Championship. Maybe Don Callis was trying to recruit Will Ospreay, and maybe Will Ospreay thought that he was going to be Don Callis' top guy, and then Don Callis went over to Chris Jericho and wanted Jericho as his top guy, and the fact that they have a long friendship that spans many years. Maybe that's the storyline that's being made here between Jericho and Ospreay. I'm not sure. But if that was the route they were going to go, I would have to say that, Don Callis plays a big, big part into that storyline between Ospreay and Jericho. And there's some people that are saying, you know what, don't even book the card. Just watch the show and see what happens. That, honestly, I'm not a big fan of that either, man. There's a lot of people, spend a lot of money to see these, to get these tickets and to see these, men and women wrestle and stuff like that. And I'm sorry, but wrestling, when it truly comes down to it, it is about storyline. People want to be invested in storylines, which gets people invested into the match, into the wrestler, and then we get the final product of this match. And with all due respect to those people that have those opinions, and they're entitled to those opinions, All In is AEW's biggest show. And that's more evident now than it ever has been. I mean, they're going to Wembley Stadium. By the time they get to Wembley later on, in this month, and I think it's like August 26th, August 27th, by the time we get to that point, which I believe is like 2.5 weeks from now, 3 weeks, something like that, you got to have something, number one. Number two, it's their biggest pay-per-view show of the year. And nothing's being booked, nothing's being played out, there's no storylines being built leading up to AEW's All In. I mean, CM Punk was the first one to say on Collision to even mention anything about AEW's All In show at Wembley. No one else has said a damn thing about All In until CM Punk did on Collision. So, if I was Tony Khan, I mean, hey man, you need to get the ball rolling. We need to get some kind of details of what the hell's going on at All In. It's their biggest show of the year. And if you're going to have 80,000 people sold out at Wembley Stadium, you best believe you better put on a damn good show, man, because if not, a lot of people are going to be very, very disappointed. I'm not saying, okay, Young Bucks and Omega versus CM Punk and FTR. Now, would it be a dream match to see? Sure. Is it going to happen? No. But they have enough people on that roster right now and build storylines to make a great show if they do that. And honestly, the other big, question mark in the room, if you will, I don't think it's a big question mark, but, a lot of people were talking about Goldberg. I would not be surprised, honestly, if Goldberg does happen to show up at AEW's All In show at Wembley. I would not be surprised at all. And he signs a deal with Tony Khan or something like that, and he's all elite. I would not be surprised at this point. Do I think Goldberg style of wrestling fits with AEW? No, but I know a lot of people, if he does sign a contract with AEW, the one match that everybody wants to see Goldberg in is Goldberg versus Wardlow. Because Wardlow walks around just like Goldberg. He's like another Goldberg / Batista kind of wrestler. And to bring a guy in like Goldberg, I mean, what other match do you want to see Goldberg in besides Wardlow? And it might not be the greatest Wardlow match you've ever seen either. So I can definitely see something like that happening at All In. But right now, man, everything's up in the air with All In. Nothing's really being booked. Like I said to you guys earlier, as far as I know, the only thing that's been talked about is Will Ospreay going up against Chris Jericho at All In. But nothing's concrete yet. So But all in all, Collision was a great show, and there was a lot of news coming out of that show. And for all intents and purposes, it was a really good show. I mean, I like the direction that Collision's going, and I look forward to next week. Obviously the special referee match with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the match between CM Punk and Ricky Starks. Definitely looking forward to that and what's going to happen next between Punk and Ricky Starks. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Collision. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.